Hey, welcome to another update on Archmage Rises, and with me as always is Neil. Hi, Neil.
Hi. Oh,
Yeah. Okay, so it's your first time being on here. Nick's wife was sick, and he needed to tend to that. So I put out an email, a bunch of people last minute saying, hey, anybody can join me, and Neil was nice enough to be able to join us. So welcome, Neil.
welcome. Aloha.
And where are you currently living?
Kona, Hawaii.
Yeah.
Slightly farther away.
My wife thinks it's pretty great that I have a friend in Hawaii because she's always like poking me and saying, hey, when are you going to go visit your friend? When are we going to go visit your friend?
Anytime. You are welcome. Show you the big island? Yes.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Yeah, I won't be telling her that. So, that flight is way too long. I've done it. You have been following Archmage actually for a really long time. How long has that been?
Since you did a big announcement in CGDC quite a while ago? No, before that. It was before you did the year where you set up a booth and everything. The year before that. You're kind of like, I think I'm going to push forward with this. So that's a while ago. 4-ish years?
Probably.
Yeah.
And now you haven't been very active on the forums, but you often comment through Facebook or through the website, like blog, right? So people may recognize you from that, but as opposed to like Steam forum interaction. But yeah, you've been one of the guys, longtime follower, first time caller. So what to you? What is your favorite part of Archmage Rises?
The simulated world, especially when it comes to crafting the story of those kind of people in the world and how you can interact with that story. That seems crazy cool because it's never been done right, and it's never really been done really. So it's cool to see where this is going.
Well, that explains why it's so hard.
Yeah, and you probably need something brand new. It'll take a year.
Yeah. You're also a game developer. Why don't you tell people the game you're working on?
We have a few. The main one is Ecodon, Turning Tides, which is a Polynesian fantasy RPG with cinematic tactical combat, and that's our big one. But we got a couple more in the pipe too. So, got a VR game and kind of a simple arcade one, and then a new one I'm just starting on, which is a 2D kind of platform one. So, yeah, bunch of stuff.
Wow, keeping busy. And you work in video doing, you're like a producer on TV, movies?
Not quite there at that level yet. So working at new studios, and yeah, we have a lot of startup stuff over here, working at an accelerator that starts all sorts of film and TV shows.
Yeah. Cool. So, this week, I have an update on Archmage Rises, and last time I wrote an article about the 10 realizations I had from taking a break from working on the game, and you read that article, and you thought that it was pretty good. I remember you saying that.
Breaks are so needed. Oh.
So there's a couple of things that since I wrote that article, I've tried to put it into practice, right? That's the whole point, right? It was to learn something and put it into practice. So I'll just highlight a few things that have actually really helped. And so the first one is I have a kind of a poster on the wall in front of me that's something I had printed out, and it says "Pros play hurt." I got that from the War of Art. I don't know if you remember that from the War of Art, Stephen Pressfield, and that just made a huge impression on me. That, you know, amateurs are always like complaining about things not being quite right or enough or whatever, you know, achy bones or whatever. But pros, they play day in, day out, no matter, you know, rain or how bad they feel, you know, pull hamstring and stuff. Well, maybe not that far, but anyway, pros play hurt. So. Since the last update, I got sick, and you have little kids, and I have little kids, and my 3-year-old got something and passed it on to me because he likes to share, and so I got sick, but I still got up each day and still worked on the game each day, which is something that didn't happen before. and for two reasons. One is in terms of motivation, but the second thing is I thought at first I had allergies, and I don't know if you have allergies or have seasonal allergies or something, but here we're in spring, and I'm allergic to like all the trees, like basically any tree. If a tree was to jump out in front of me, I'd start sneezing. I'm allergic to all these tree pollens and stuff, and so like I was really not feeling good and stuff, and so I thought it was just allergies. So if I think it's just allergies, I'm like, oh, I'll just sit down and just keep working, right? And anyways, it wasn't until quite a bit later, like through Easter, I had to cook for 15 people because my wife is no good at cooking. She doesn't watch these videos, so I could say that. So I had to cook for 15 people and stuff. I felt pretty terrible, but I was still able to put on this meal, and it was pretty good. People liked it, whatever. And then, anyways, still able to keep working and doing things around the house, all this stuff. And then I came to realize actually it wasn't allergies. Like I took some allergy medication, didn't help at all. And turns out like, oh, I got sick. And I was like, wow, this is really weird. Like, how come I'm still able to do things while I'm sick? I figured out the answer. Do you want to know what it is?
Of course.
I had a lady cold. Okay, so I had a lady cold. So what happens is when my wife gets sick, she's like, hey, I'm sick and I'm still doing this and getting up with the kids and doing all these things and stuff. And you're sick and you're just like, just like lying in bed, like, can't move and whatever, right? And the answer is because I have a man cold. Okay, but this time round, for the first time in my life, I caught a lady cold. And so I was still able to work and do all the things I needed to do. So that was very interesting. I didn't know that they could cross the species like that. Maybe I got some new variant or something. But anyways, yeah. So I got a lady cold. So I was able to work. So it'll be a sad, sad day if the women of our world start catching man colds. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, we'd be done for.
It changed the world.
Yeah.
It changed the world.
It's over. Okay, anyway, so the next thing that really helped, and it sounds totally ridiculous, but my tasks were too big. I just needed smaller tasks. And so the very first thing I did when I sat down after doing the video update and started on the next Monday, I sat down and I just went through my existing tasks and started making them smaller. And I broke them down into things that were roughly 1 or 2 or 3 hours, like, that kind of size. Sometimes it's hard to say, but, just like very small and defined. And using my Asana application, I was able to, bang one off and click the complete button. And then I have this view in Asana that's kind of like a sticky note view. And so it has these columns, and so I'm able to like take the thing and put it over into the done column, and then over the course of the day or whatever, you start to see the done column building up and stuff. And it's like, again, it sounds like so simple, so basic or whatever, but like those little things actually help a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, especially when you're in the middle of doing something.
You get a pile of things that you've done, your esteem goes.
Yeah, exactly.
I got stuff.
I got stuff done. So that has been helpful. And then, some people wrote in and said, after the video about, hey, I need to take a break from this and stuff, they said, you know what, like pick other things of the game that you like working on and just like work on those things and stuff. And so I have done some of that. And that's why this update's about Dungeons and Lore, because for a couple of days there, I worked half a day on the dungeons and then half a day doing some writing on the lore and the background of the world. And that was fun. So that at the end of the day, when it was time for me to go and make dinner for everybody and feed the animals, at the end of the day, I was leaving on a high, right? And so somebody had wrote that in. Sorry, I don't remember exactly who it was, but they wrote in that comment saying, hey, it really is important that you end on a high for the day. So the next day, you're not like, oh man, I gotta go back to my keyboard and face that crappiness. I'm like, oh yeah, I can go and face that good thing again.
Especially when it's 1 week or 2 weeks away from the good thing to be checked off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I have a little something to show, and it's the work on the 3D dungeons, and so I will show that. It's not hugely impressive. It hasn't moved forward a lot from what you've seen before, but anyways, I might as well show the progress. So here we are. So here we are looking at the game. So we're looking through the camera view, and it probably doesn't look like it, but I'm actually almost done the 3D dungeon stuff. It's taken me like a long time to get anything working, and now I'm in the last parts of it. And so in terms of the assets that you see here, I just jumbled together like a bunch of assets, and these picture things are actually from the 2D view, and I just pulled them as textures into this view.
Right.
But the first thing that I did was I made a Unity window tool editor window thing for making the dungeons and generating it. Before I was using something else, which was called a script wizard. This is something else. So anyways, what's great about this is that I can click this button generate. I can click it like a lot. And, and so it really gives me a lot of fast iteration, and I can click it like as fast as I can, and then I can eyeball and see if things are broken, right? Because that's the key with procedural generation is to test as many things as you possibly can. That's
fast.
Yeah, it's super fast.
So helpful.
And you'll notice the game is actually running while I'm doing this. Yeah. So I have no idea what if that's some kind of feature I can utilize or not, but it's creating all of the geometry and such on the fly, and then keeping the camera sort of in spot. So the other thing, there's a couple things going on here that are new. One of them is the camera, which you, as a video visual guy, noticed immediately. That the camera moves around and changes the angle slightly, like from looking down to looking slightly up. Maybe sometimes it's rotated a bit on the Z. And so even though this is exactly the same room with essentially the same doors, because I only have 3 doors and I only have a few different wall hangings.
Or later.
Yeah. Anyways, I think the rooms look quite different, even though they're all exactly the same in terms of the size of the rooms.
Yeah.
So I just have to make the program remember when it generated the camera, like when it generated the room, where did it generate the camera? I just have to save the camera position, and then every time you go in this room, it'll look exactly the same.
Cool.
So the next thing that I did was I can vary these things by quite a bit. So if I made the room really wide and...
That looks like the Haunted Mansion.
I know, that's because of the lighting, eh? So this is supposed to be a narrow hallway. I might even be able to make it more narrow. Apparently not.
Nope, that's a wall.
Oh, that blew up. There's an error in the bottom. Okay, we'll go back to 6. So still a little bit of work to do so that you could still be able to click the doors in a narrow hallway. I don't know why there's no door there. Should always be a door on all 3. Anyways, this is a good one. Yeah. So I could see all 3. So this is a narrow corridor. And then I can also change the height of things. So if I make the height, let's do 5. You'll see it actually changes the doors to only doors that'll fit. So it doesn't have the really tall doors, and it's also centering whatever the wall hangings are to whatever the size of the ceiling is. So right now all my wall hangings are actually exactly the same size, but it's programmed in such a way that they can be much smaller and much larger, and then it'll figure out when it's picking how much room do I have, and it'll put the appropriate thing on there and stuff, just as as it should. So if I was to
your art, can you tag your art to be certain sized?
Yes.
So good.
Yeah, so the algorithm just takes care of it. So I just tag all the art as to like what the sizes are, and then it just takes care of it.
That's great. You can have different sized rooms. So if it's a low ceiling room, this group of art can go in it.
Yes.
The high ceiling room, this group of art, which is probably wider. That's awesome. And good lighting on this.
Yeah, so this is supposed to be a more cavernous room, right? Like this is like a big room. And so my lighting is for some reason not the same across all of these examples, but anyway, you can see that I don't know how well you can see it on your screen, but anyways, I can see that the paintings and stuff are exactly halfway. So that's actually a little adjustment that I need to make, is that, when you have a really tall ceiling, nobody puts their banners like halfway on a really tall ceiling. They put it like more at the eye level and stuff, right? So just little things like that. I also have, lighting at each one of the doors, so you can actually see where the doors are.
Cool.
That was like really important.
That was.
Yeah.
You had a couple doors that were just like, where is it?
Yeah, exactly. The other thing you could do is you can mouse over, right? It's not highlighting right now because I haven't tagged everything as interactable yet, but you'll be able to just move your cursor around. If it highlights, you can click it. So even if it's maybe too dark or the lighting's not quite right and stuff, you can still do it. So,
Ooh. Does that allow secrets?
yeah, basically, because you have to be able to interact with it and such. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do for secrets.
Maybe it's hidden until you use a spell that reveals secrets, and then it highlights?
Yeah, totally. I could do that. Yeah. Okay, I'll remember that for later.
That's cool.
Okay. Thanks for creating features. 'Cause that's what I need is more features. Okay.
Oh yeah, this game has just a couple, so you definitely need more features.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that's not a hard feature. Anyway, so this is where I'm at. The next step is to fill in the rooms and to make the assets that it pulls from themed. So you like something that's more like orc themed, or maybe more dwarven themed, or more human themed, or just something like that, right? So you don't end up with a mix up of just random stuff. It's like orc banners and dwarven barrels or something, and it just doesn't make any sense. So
that's with the tag system working with themed props.
Yeah, that's right.
Super cool. Because then, hey, art department, I need this. Done.
Yep.
Yeah. I was like, that's just neat. Because it's like the end of this feature. Like you're at the very end. There's a couple little pieces to like flesh out, and maybe some bugs to debug, and that's about it. So
I like to think I'm at the end. Filling in the rooms is going to be harder. There's a reason I pushed that to the end. But it's a lot of the pieces are already in place. So yes, I'm in the last stages of this. So once I get the rooms filling in, then we'll see. I might be done right away, or might need some more loving or something. But and then I can plop it into the game, and we can see how it feels.
Yeah, because are you just using like weights on your RNG and making sure only certain things go certain places and so on?
Yeah, I use what I call a deck system. So when it creates a dungeon, it creates like a deck of cards, because theoretically, when you're playing a role-playing game, it's simply a series of encounters. Like however it is that your GM like draws it out or lays out some tile or whatever. It's like you're in this room. Now you're in this room. Now you're in this hallway. Now you're at a pool. Now you're in a room. Like, so that's kind of how the dungeons have been designed. Is like one scene at a time. So a dungeon deck will have 5, 10, 15 scenes in it. And so that's why this generator needs to be able to generate whatever it says on that card, right? So if that card says there's a passageway going to the east and a passageway going to the north, then it has to know to put in doors to the east and the north. And if it says like there's a fountain in there, then it has to be able to pull an asset of a fountain and throw it in there and stuff. And so that is the reason that I went 3D, because all that is easier to pull off from the multiple camera angles and stuff than doing it through 2D.
Yeah, that was a big jump from your 2D kind of original concepts. Everyone was like, or a lot of people I noticed were mentioning like, oh, the angles are like, can we do more angles? And you're like, ugh. And then you went to 3D, I was like, oh, this is easy. Click, click, click. Angles are like done. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example, because moving the camera today, I got the camera moving, and that was like 2 hours or something just to get the camera to move. And of course, all the assets just work, right? Because it's in 3D. Whereas like moving the camera in the 2D way, like it would have to create a whole new set of assets or whatever. It'd just be a nightmare. So, that's an example of where using the 3D actually made it faster. So on the lore side, I don't really know what to say, or like there's nothing really to show. What am I going to do? Show like a Word document? Hey, look, everybody, I worked on the lore.
Written stuff.
I've been working on the lore.
What's the lore you are working on?
The history of magic within the world. So with the writer Andrew, he and I have done kind of the big arcing overview of the history of the world. Like that's much more of like a political history. Like there was the time of the frost orcs coming and enslaving everybody, and then eventually they got beaten back and stuff. And then there was a time of the free cities where art and magic and science and everything and the merchants were like all going really well. And then there was the nobility really took over and started running things. And then the conclave got set up. So there's like all these things that set up the moment when the player enters the world. Like, why does the conclave exist, and what are they talking about when these characters talk about back in the free city time and stuff, right? So it's just setting up the world. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to reveal all those things. I hope to do it through gameplay, that you're piecing things together or somehow getting things. I don't want to say it, but I'll say it, like, I don't know, journal pages or something like that. And eventually, if you get them all in order, you can see like what the sequence of the world was. So I've always had that, but there's a couple of things in the world that are specific to this world setting or this campaign setting that have not been addressed, and I don't really have an answer for. And one of them was, why is it that like when you get a book about magic, when you study it, it gets used up, right? Like it becomes worthless or something. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like then libraries like wouldn't exist, right? Because somebody goes in, they start reading the book, and it gets used up, and then it disappears off the shelf. Like it doesn't make any sense. So, so that was something that I needed to address mechanically. To answer, like, why is the game mechanic that way, but also like in the world, like how do people respond to that? And so that ended up creating this new thing, a resource that is commonly called glow dust, but is called Holsium or Holsium. And when you write magical glyphs into a book, then you have to put this glow dust on it in order to seal it in. Otherwise, the magic fades out, and that's what makes it valuable. And so as you rub your finger over the glyphs, it actually lights them up so that you can see them and study them, and it projects imagery and stuff into the air above, and kind of like holograms. So you rub your fingers over it and make holograms come up, and that's how you can actually see how to do the magic, because magic is much more than just saying words, or there's actually no spell resonance in this world. So it's so you need these glyphs in order to show you kind of movements, kind of like martial arts. Like it's very hard to write a book about martial arts, right? Like it's much easier to watch a video of martial arts and go, oh, that's how I'm supposed to move my body and that kind of thing. So it's that sort of concept. So
books are tutorials, visually showing you how the magic is brought into the world.
Yeah.
Cool.
So just it's important for the world to be consistent. And I think and hope interesting to the players that are going to be playing in it. And so I saw this a bit as a weakness, like a blind spot that needed to be addressed. And so I started working on that, and it was both enjoyable, and I think I came up with some good answers. And I must do a shout out to Emily Adams helped me with some of that, just by being a sounding board and stuff, and looking at some first draft stuff, and so anyways, working on the lore and stuff too. So not exactly sure how I'm gonna get that lore stuff out to people. Like I don't want to necessarily release another PDF to everybody. A lot of work goes into making a PDF first and foremost, but here's the most important thing. Are you ready? Okay.
So most important thing on Magic is...
No, the most important thing about me working on the lore is it gets me very excited to work on the game. Okay, so like when I came up with this new resource of glow dust, I was like, ooh, that's an interesting resource. And like, where is that? Yes. And where can the player find that? And it has value, and you can sell it to the conclave, and like those kinds of things. I'm like, ooh, I want to get that, into the world. Awesome. So working on the lore answers some of the world setting, problems and stuff, and then also gets me excited in order to like work on the game. And so something nobody knows, but way back at the very beginning, before I had told anybody I was even working on this thing, I had started working on a prototype, and while I was working on a prototype, I went and I wrote a whole bunch of story that took place in this world, and that got me actually really excited about the possibilities of this role-playing world, and got me working on the game. And so it's been 4 or something years, so to go back and do some of that kind of work again, that thing that initially got the ball rolling for me, was actually really helpful and enjoyable and stuff. So
Yeah.
So the point is,
good.
I like working on Archmage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's come back again.
Yeah.
The motivation.
And so the final thing that I'll share is one of the realizations is, I think it was number one, is that I'm more of an executive than I am a worker. I find it very hard to sit down and actually do the work. And I know that I don't know of a good way to say that, but anyway, I'm used to more like leading the team than I am to actually doing the actual, day-to-day work. So,
different skill set too. So it's like hard to be the worker.
Yeah,
I don't work on that skill set. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So, so I've been talking with my wife, and there is a possibility that I'm going to hire a programmer. We haven't decided this for sure. Because my finances are really low. But I'm really sick and tired of the game not being done. So those are the two things. Like, I kind of don't have any money, but I also don't want this to go on forever and ever and ever. And so we are currently talking through how this might look. And so it's a little bit handy that Nick isn't here, because it'd be kind of awkward to say, "Oh, think of hiring a programmer, not you, Nick, to work on the game." But because of some government grant stuff that can happen if I hire someone from Ontario who is a graduate from school, and we're just getting into graduation time here. It's April, end of April, early May, so we're getting into graduate time. So if I was to hire a grad to come and help me program on this game, that might work. There's a bunch of problems with hiring a grad, which is like it's their first job, and I have to bring them up to speed and like all kinds of stuff. And I'm not making fun of grads. I've done this before. I've hired people straight out of school, and you got to ramp them up. Up. It's a lot easier to hire someone with 5 years experience. Yeah, it just is. So anyway, there's a lot of things to consider, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. I am considering it. So if someone out there is a grad in game dev, comp sci, in Ontario, because you have to be from Ontario in order for the government grants thing to apply, let me know. Contact me, and I will give you serious consideration. I don't know if anyone out there qualifies under this, but who knows? We'll see. Yeah. So there is a school 45 minutes away from where I live, a university, and they do have a comp sci game dev course. And I've talked with the prof there in the past, several years ago, but he and I had a number of exchanges. And so I reached out to him this week to say, hey, could you point me towards some students that are really keen and really good, and maybe I can hire them? Again, maybe. So we'll see where this goes. I'll have a firm answer by next update, because my wife and I have to work out a lot of things in order to make this happen. But so we're not sure if this is the right move now. This is maybe the right move ever. But we're working through that. So people might be encouraged that I am leaving no stone unturned in order to try and finish Archmage Rises.
And possibly speed it up.
Well, yes, yeah. Speeding it up. That's exactly it, yeah.
Because it will be finished. I know you're going to finish it.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. So, that's what I have for an update. I don't know if you have any questions or anything.
One kind of question came up on the lore stuff. The big thing I was thinking about was that's now a commodity, this new glow dust.
Glow dust.
And the other term is harder. But that's a cool part of the world. And then I was thinking about, you had this whole background story, right, to the whole world. So is glow dust a major commodity now?
It's not a major commodity like in terms of oil, like that kind of thing. It's a special need that the mages have. And so it makes them dependent on it. So think of it as kind of like salt in medieval times. Like it's, nobody's going to die without it. Right. But it sure is handy to have it. And they want to keep a constant supply and stuff. And, you're always looking for new salt deposits. So you're looking for new glow dust deposits. Okay. And so I don't know mechanically like how much it's like going to come in. But it's something that is a cost to making a book. And so that's why, as the player can't just copy a book. This is one of the mechanical problems I had in the game. Was like, okay, so you find a book, okay, so you got this book, and it's worth 500 gold. So the choice in the game, and I want this to be a choice, is do I study the book and gain its knowledge, or do I sell it and gain the money? Because sometimes the money's more important, sometimes the knowledge is more important, right? So I want it to be an either or. So, like, why can't you just grab some paper and just copy it? Like, just like software. Why can't you just pirate it? So just copy it and then sell it to the guy for 500 gold, and you get to study it. Or even better, why don't you just make 5 copies, sell it to the guy for 500 each, and then you have 2,500 gold. So, like, it's something that needs to be solved, right? And so this glow dust as a requirement in order to, like, seal in the magic that is in the book. Basically, if you were to copy the book, it would cost you like almost 500 gold in order to copy the book, which makes the whole copying thing kind of go away. And so, if the Conclave has its own stores of glow dust and they're able to buy it en masse and get it cheaper than you can and stuff, that explains why the Conclave is able to duplicate books at a rate that you can't, and that's why you're borrowing them or buying them or something. Anyway, but it's nice to have you on this call because you're a story guy, right?
Oh man, stories. Yep.
Yeah.
World building too. World building is like huge. Core story is nice, but world building is awesome, and that leads to a second question, which is this beautiful backstory you put to the whole world. Will it affect individual characters' backstories? Like you're talking about, how do you seed information about history? What if it's from their family backstory? And then they're like, oh, what about this, blah, blah, and it's added into their kind of their tag of their person. So I'm so-and-so from this town, but this town actually went through this period of time, and my family was tied to some of the history there. Therefore, maybe some of the language he speaks, or maybe key parts of what he talks about, brings up pieces of the history.
Yes, it would, in that sense that, if this is a resource in the world, then people have jobs associated with it, right? So if you encounter someone who's, got a mule going from A to B, one of the things they could be carrying is glow dust, right?
Right.
And so, like, it would show up in that sense. Like, but I don't know if it necessarily would make, somebody's family background different. Like, he's a miner of marble, or he's a miner of glow dust, or he's a miner. Like, I don't think that would, like, change.
Not the glow dust stuff. I was referring to your background in history. So you had the different periods of time of history that.
Oh yes.
So those pieces of history at different time periods, they could affect family history.
Yes.
And so that would relate to the background of an individual. Is if one family was a noble actually long ago, during that noble that were in charge of the whole world, or another family was, directly descended from the ones who were part of that free trade times. Yeah. So that's affected their family, and that's why they're traders still, because they kind of hail from that time period. It affects maybe some of the language they would speak when they're talking to you.
Short answer, yes.
So backstory.
Yeah, so I hope to weave in, the history of the world into these things. So the nobility is the nobility because of something, right? So looking at real history, there were 10 founding families of Rome, and those were the 10 noble families. Why were they like? So you fast forward 300 years. Why are these the noble families? The answer is because those were the 10 founding families of Rome. So everybody who showed up after them was a pleb, right? They were just a normal person because they weren't there at the very beginning, right? And so that's what you're saying, like. So there is like a little Boolean on people as to whether they have noble blood or not, and so there is an answer as to why that person has noble blood. And when I haven't built this part yet, so I am just talking about a feature yet to come. But when you go to usurp, if you cause enough chaos in a city, you can get to the point where they're going to usurp whoever is in charge, and then you can recommend someone to go forward to be the person that takes over, and you can only recommend people of noble blood. Like, that's the only people that people are going to follow. So you can look to see, like, who in this town has noble blood. There could be like 3 or 4 different families or different dudes or something that have noble blood, and you boot out the one guy and then vote in one of the other guys, and then he would owe you or something. So the noble blood thing does matter.
That's cool. It's good because those are foundational pieces that allow kind of the organic story to unfold, and that's what another piece of why I like where you're heading with Archmage. It's like it's organic storytelling with real history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things people have been critical of, and in all fairness, they should be, is that there isn't a lot of fantasy in Archmage Rises, the fantasy world, right? Like, it's all very, regular medieval world, right? Where's the magic? Where's the fantasy? And the answer is because I had yet to figure out some of these background things so that I can weave them in. And so that's the lore stuff that I'm working on, so that nobody's going to see something next week. They go, aha, there's the fantasy in Archmage Rises. But I'm working on these things in the background so that a month or 2 or 3 from now, people start to say, oh, look, it's much more of a fantasy world than it was. Well, that's because of some of the work that I'm doing right now.
Cool. Exciting.
It is exciting. All right. Well, this has been a longer than expected update video, but I appreciate you being on here, Neil, to ask questions about story, because Nick just doesn't care. So he wouldn't ask any stories, any questions about story. So I guess it was fortuitous that you were here.
Cool. Yeah, it was like when I saw the title for the episode. I was like, hey, cool.
Dungeons and Lore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's the update, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.